Welcome back to the LATAM MedTech Leaders Podcast. Today, our guest is Dr. Enrique Saldívar. Hey, Enrique, it's great to have you here in the show today. How are you doing?
Thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Awesome, Enrique. Well, listeners, Dr. Saldívar's career in medical devices has focused on the transformation of cutting-edge technology and development into meaningful medical solutions. His multidisciplinary background combined with a deep sense of social responsibility provides him with a unique perspective to provide solutions to unmet medical needs in underserved communities. Throughout his career, he has been appointed faculty at the Scripps Research Institute, La Jolla Bioengineering Institute, the West Wireless Health Institute, and Case Western Reserve University. Dr. Saldívar's interests are focused on the use of technology to improve the quality of life globally and to ameliorate the accessibility to first-class medical attention in underprivileged communities. Dr. Saldivar received his medical training in Universidad La Salle, received his MD from Universidad Autonoma de Mexico, UNAM, his master's in biomedical engineering from Universidad Autonoma Metropolitana, and his Ph.D. in bioengineering from the University of California, San Diego. So, Enrique, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. It's really an honor, a privilege to have you here on the show. We finally got to meet here over video. I mean, it took us a while, huh?
Yeah, some technical challenges here. Thank you very much. I can not tell you enough. There are no words. Thank you for having me here, and of course to your audience to listen to our conversation.
Fantastic, Enrique. It's really a pleasure. You're welcome. All right, so let's get started here. Let's talk about your journey to Latin America. What's your personal story? What's your professional story? What's your link with Latin America?
Okay, well, first, the link is very deep. I'm Mexican. I mean, so I was born in Mexico. I live in Mexico. Is where I did my medical training and my first the beginning of my engineering training. And one of the things from the personal perspective, what happened, I when I studied, I don't want to age myself, so I will not tell you when it happened. But biomedical engineering or bioengineering were not so well established fields. They were in the making. For that matter, bioengineering started in 1960. Started as a discipline. So when I studied, when I finished, when I started the university, I needed to make a decision to study. So it was a tough decision. I didn't want to study theoretical physics. That was one of my passions. So I decided to go to something more engaged with the well-being of human beings, and the natural choice was to study bioengineering. Or biomedical engineering. Later on we talk about this. I make a distinction between bioengineering and biomedical engineering. But anyways, when I started, I went and studied what universities had to offer in biomedical engineering, and I realized that they were lacking the basic medical education. So basically it was electrical engineering. So a couple of courses in anatomy, but it was electrical engineering. So I, after a lot of soul searching and a very difficult set of decisions, I studied medicine first. So the joke that I make all the time, I studied medicine, become a better engineer, and I studied engineering to become a better scientist. So that's what the common joke that I made. So anyway, I when I did my internship in medical school, I realized the how unfair the medical treatment, or how unequal the medical treatment for the poor. I did my internship in San Luis Potosí. That is, they serve a lot of the poor rural population in Mexico. Mexico, and there was an airplane, so I hope that didn't. I'm having a problem hearing you.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm on mute. No worries.
Okay. So anyway, when I did my internship, I realized how bad the poor have in all Latin America. Later on, I started in Mexico, in rural Mexico. Later on, I paid attention to what happened in Mexico City, and then talking with my friends, and so I realized it's a very unfair situation. So I had the bias. I tried to see things all the time. I studied medicine with an engineering mind, and I studied engineering with a physician's mind. So when I was studying medicine, I paid attention all the time to medical technology. Mm-hmm. And then I realized a couple of difficult things that the underserved communities or emerging economies have. That is, for instance, we have in the hospital, it's a third level hospital. I realized that a lot of the medical equipment was not used. And I asked them, why is it not used? Oh, because the technicians come from Germany. So we need to have a grant from the government, serve the equipment. And then I asked them, well, why did we buy it? And the answer was, I didn't buy it. So I realized very early in my career, I think this is a very convoluted way to say that I realized very early the common aspects, not only in Latin America, but all underserved communities. There's a quote I'm going to add here from Anish Chopra, who was the first CTO of the White House under President Obama. I was presenting him. I was introducing one of our projects a few years ago, and I talked about, basically I talked about the situation, and that project was geared towards Latin America. I said because of quality of care and the poor societies and everything. He told me, stop here. He told me, time. You're talking as if we didn't have poor communities or underserved communities in the States. And since that, after that conversation, I just widen my scope. I started originally talking about the rural areas in Mexico. Later on, I moved to Latin America. Later on, I included Africa, and now every time that I talk, I include underserved communities. Period. I think the commonality of the underserved communities are way bigger than one would like. So I don't know if that answer, I don't know if I went through the tangent. Very convoluted.
No, that's so fine.
I hope I answered you.
It's a great answer. Very personal, by the way, and it tells a lot about the realities of underserved communities, including Latin America. That's the right terminology, right? So, Enrique, what major epidemiological, political, social, or economic trends do you see in Latin America that are relevant to our discussion about medical technologies in the region?
Okay, one can answer that question in many different ways, right? I mean, it's a, and that it's like a porcupine. It has pokes you no matter where you touch it or what angle you take to approach it. Okay, I'm I'm going to start with something that I hope answers the question. In terms of epidemiological problems, well, there are a couple of issues. And by the way, if later on anybody wants to contact me, I have the information for anybody. There are okay. We talked about the commonalities of rural environments or underserved communities. Okay, now what happens? Those aspects, I think, is fair to say that they are common throughout the entire universe that we see. But uh, Latin America, there's a lot of there are a lot of resources in our country. Then what happens is that industrialized societies or developed economies tend to go create business in those countries, right? It's a fair exchange, or not all the time is so fair, but it's an exchange in the raw goods, extraction techniques, industrialized products. Then what happens in our societies is that people tend to the cities, that is where the jobs are, where industrial jobs. For instance, in Mexico, we have one of the major Volkswagen assembly plants in the world. With the maquiladora industry and other things, so we tend to manufacture others because, of course, the raw goods are produced in those countries, labor is cheaper and many. Then what happens is that suddenly you have a country that hasn't developed completely or haven't completely solved their basic nutrition, infectious diseases problems or needs. They haven't solved them, and then they start having what I call the McDonaldization of the diet, right? So you have people. McDonald's makes an appearances. You have Big Macs, and then you have heavy smokers who haven't completely solved their infectious diseases problem and are start having heart attacks, diabetes, and other things. Same things happened in the States with the Native Americans. By the way, they are subject to a triple prong here. So that's what we call the double burden of disease. So that means the society hasn't completely solved the underdeveloped or underserved communities problems, and they start buying the developed community problems, cancers. So that's actually one of the things that the way the economies are going, globalization is going, we are just made worse. So we are just increasing the double burden disease. If anybody, first I hope somebody is going to be listening to this podcast. They are going to be listening because of you.
That's my job. I make sure people listen to this.
When somebody listens to this, I encourage you to pay attention, to do some research, and see what happens in India, for instance, what happens in China, and what happens in all Latin America, what happens in Brazil. and it's going to start happening more and more in Africa as we industrialize. Then it's kind of okay. We are start being adolescents before finishing childhood, and it's a very unfair situation because other countries like the US, here in the US, or Japan or Europe, they had years of childhood, pre-adolescence, adolescence, adulthood, and stuff. So they had the time to develop with this technology. For instance, I don't know if you know this. It's an really interesting fact, but the telegraph, the U.S., was developed at the same time as the railroad. So they other countries didn't have that vision, that level of organization, because the companies were pushing their products, so the telegraph arrived when it arrived, period, right? So the framework in these countries is completely different than what happens in Latin America or underserved communities. That's actually my point in this case, that they in Latin America we did not go many aspects through the adolescence stage, and they want you now the man of the house, right? without being prepared, right?
That's a great way to put it. Love it.
That actually sometimes it helps. Sometimes it helps. For instance, Belize has one of the best electronic health records
really
in the planet.
Wow.
Because they don't have legacy.
Yes.
So
they jump from the donkey to the space shuttle.
right?
Yeah.
So that has some problems.
Yeah.
Right. But also has some benefits. You don't need to maintain certain. Okay. For instance, we are at this moment we are suffering here in the U.S. We are suffering part of COBOL lately became a new needed commodity in software, because the Social Security Administration, a lot of their computers work in COBOL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nobody
legacy
programs in COBOL anymore,
language.
and exactly. So now I mean, and please, I encourage any of your
viewers or listeners,
anybody who listeners of your listeners, I encourage you guys to see this. COBOL became actually had a jump. Also, R, the programming language, had a jump. R was because of COVID-19. So we have certain we are dealing with too many moving legacy pieces in the US. But anyway, that's another that's the flip side of what we. So
you're touching some very good points, Enrique. But moving along here, let's talk about your opinion about Latin America as a place to. Of course, before I jump into the question, what you're basically saying is that people are getting sicker in Latin America, right? So
they have different causes for getting sick. We around the globe we're getting sicker, right? But they have different causes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also we have the aging of the population. That's another element here of the Latin American population. All right. So going back to my question is, what do you think about Latin America, about a place to commercialize innovative medical technologies, or to conduct clinical research? And if you could also talk about your experience in the region, that will complement the answer.
First, I think it's the best place on the planet to do medical. Well, to work on medical development. I think it is the
Wow.
best place.
Why is that?
First, because the economies are very strong, regardless if if we want to see that in a different way. Is the production raw products is going to still be very solid for many years to come. Okay, the population is growing. They adopt. They are early adopters of technology. That's another thing. And one of the for political reasons, they are very eager, and political reasons I'm talking about, their politicians are very eager to adopt, being in the modern times, so to speak, right? So that actually creates an excellent opportunity. One of the things that I'm going to encourage listeners to do is to create more than an instant gratification opportunity, to create a long-term relationship, a sustainable relationship with Latin America. It's better for you as an entrepreneur, and it's better for the entire ecosystem in the States and in Latin America. So, in other words, what I think a lot of people have failed in Latin America because they try to bring the new technology that was developed here in the States and works very well in the States and has reagents, many it has many components that are created here in the States, as a way of keeping the business going, create an ongoing relationship. But I think it's easy to see that those as soon as that equipment becomes legacy, then the whole thing crumbles. Because then it becomes unsustainable. Here in the States, you can buy parts for your legacy products fairly fast, but there you can't. So the whole thing collapses. So I encourage everyone to create, to design technology for Latin America first. If that technology works and has a place in Latin America, it will most definitely have a place in the US and Europe. And our group had done. There was an example, Sense for Baby was an example that I had the privilege to co-design direct when I was at the West Wireless Health Institute, and was created precisely with that philosophy. We created something that was deployed, used in Mexico, and it was later on adapted fairly easy to be used in the States, because in the States and Europe, by the way, it was deployed in the Netherlands and it was very well accepted there. So if you want to make something universal, you expand. If you take Latin American, please, I'm going to use this term very limited. If you use Latin America playground or your sandbox, you can then suddenly the applications or the applicability are universal. You can then very easily move and expand around it. And reason why I said the sandbox or playground is I said, okay, let's use that in a very limited way. Is I encourage everybody not to make the mistake that others have. That is, try to skip the FDA process and then go to Latin America instead, because it's cheaper, faster, and they cannot even spell FDA there. They're trying to get around it. When clients come to tell me they to do that, I tell them change product. If your product cannot be approved by the FDA, then change. You should, in other words, we shouldn't be talking about this. I think you should have everything that you do needs to be bulletproof. You should design for Latin America with the standards of the US. Then your product will never have the infrastructure limitation. You're going to expand, you're going to apply your technology universally, and nobody would come back to you either legally, morally, ethically, however. You are going to be doing a good thing, and it's just a slight change in your mindset. What is not more technology, is a very straightforward path.
Wow, that's a nice answer. Very, very interesting approach. I've never really thought about it from that perspective. So let's get into more practical things, Enrique. In what specific countries in Latin America have you had experience? Of course, Mexico. Is there any other country where you've done something?
Well, in not directly. I mean, we have done a number of market studies in Peru and Brazil, Argentina, and Chile.
Okay.
But directly, I want to be very, very clear here. There were, my experience there was kind of a desk experience, yes, phone calls, teleconferencing, talking with the researchers and so on. But the only time that my group has deployed from end-to-end solution had been in Mexico and in the States. Other countries, for instance, Peru, we work. There was a project. Okay, I might misquote that. I think it was called Amanece. That was the project that we have helped with, and we were working on the Ministry of Health view. Helping the Ministry of Health in this in how to deploy or how to explore what were their needs, so they could deploy medical. So, but what we discovered when we performed those studies was, except for a couple of things, the commonality of problems in this are exceptional. This basically, you can consider, or at least that's my own personal opinion, you can consider that everything that starts in Mexico, the south, is one big country with some specific regional changes, but basically it's one. But to give you an example of this, an exception, we realized when we were studying this that Chile presented a very unique. It was we found that by serendipity provided a really weird a unique opportunity, great opportunity for them, because the coverage of the cell tower is amazing. Chile has 97% of territorial coverage, because it's a very narrow, long country. Then you need to have, I don't remember how many were there, like 2 or 3 lines running parallel, rather than what happened here in the States if you want to give coverage to the Mojave Desert, right?
Yeah.
So that's but those are few of the exceptions. We found a couple of interesting exceptions, opportunities. In general, the commonalities surpass it.
Okay. Interesting.
I don't know if that answers.
No, that answers the question. Have you ever had experience in Mexico with COFEPRIS and the regulatory approval process? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, indirectly, the only process, the only products that I directly deployed was sensor based, right? And I'm working on another one right now, but anyway, that's still yet to come, right? It's a cardiology technology, but we realized, by the way, the comment that I made about the FDA process was probably the best way to go, is that we realized that COFEPRIS precisely had if you present the FDA approval, they use that, or they used to, when we did that, they took the approval of the FDA as a predecessor for the process. So the process was a lot easier, COFEPRIS, once that they saw that we had the FDA. So that's my experience there. It was, I'm going to say, marginal for us, but our instinct when we generated the whole thing first to be FDA approval proved to be right.
Okay.
And it makes perfect sense, right? Once you have for instance, an FDA approval is going to make your life easier, not more difficult, if you get a CE mark or go, right? I mean, it definitely will not make your life more.
Yeah. Most countries in Latin America consider FDA approvals as from the physician perspective, from marketing perspective, is this the standard, the gold standard of approvals in the world.
Yeah.
And there are 5 reference countries: Canada, the U.S., Europe, Japan, and Australia.
Yeah.
In the case of Colombia, for example, at INVIMA, if you want to get a product approved, you have to have one of these approvals for one of these 5 reference countries, or you home country approval. But if you exactly, that's the only avenue outside of these 5 countries that you have to get a product approved. But what happens is that, let's say your home country is Nigeria, right? No physician in Colombia would accept a product from Nigeria. So unfortunately,
that's exactly, and that's I'm going to extend on that comment that you're making. Yes, let's say that you are a medical product designer, and then you want to get your product deployed in Nigeria. Fine, you are going to find exactly the same obstacle that you were mentioning. If I go first to Nigeria, get everything, it doesn't matter. I might be from Colorado, right? I get my approval in Nigeria. Then I try to sell it in Colombia. That is another country that I might deploy it, and I might face, either a real or perceived obstacle there. It's better to center everything again. I insist in what I tell my clients: get FDA approval. Don't that's I tell them, get the mindset needs to have an FDA approval. Even if the clinical trials are going to be set in Mexico, as what we did, okay, but the IRBs came from the States. So nobody can tell me that we did it because we wanted to get around any process. No, it was, and that's the way we did it. We presented to the hospitals the IRBs, approval, translated and everything from the States. Then the entire dossier that we had here, and of course, in few days they approved it, because they saw the entire process, the comments, that they were the same one that they have, how we answer, and they approve everything. So but anyway, that's
Okay.
I'm talking about the same thing. I'm repeating myself.
No, but you're emphasizing your point, and that's very valid. All right. So moving along here, Enrique, what about clinical research? You just mentioned something about a trial. I mean, what's been the extent of your experience doing research in Mexico or elsewhere in Latin America?
Well, we again, just the clinical trials that we have done, that I personally have been, from the medical device perspective, was precisely on the efficiency of the devices, and we basically ran a couple of some hospitals. It was we did that in Mexico. We started in Tabasco, and later on we moved to Chiapas. At that moment, is when I stepped out of the institute. I did the first in human test was done by myself in Tabasco. I was the first one to put sense for baby human. Was done for the clinical trial. And I have to say that people, the only problem that we saw there is that you face kind of the opposite problem. People are too eager; they believe everything that you have, because you come from from the States. You have this new technology, and then people are eager to try. It's a great thing, but I can see how easily that can be abused by somebody. Yeah, right. So if they are willing to they trust you, you come here, you come recommended from the director or the Ministry of Health, or so you have this cool device they want to use, right? So that's another responsibility that you take, right? You need to harness that, but from their point of view, I have to say that, or what I experienced is that people were, if you wish, over eager to use the new. Remember, these devices were designed to work in the rural environment, and one of the things that we did was, for instance, we put in Sense for Babies a cardiotachograph. It measures high risk. It detects high risk pregnancy. It's a test that is done routinely. Third pregnancy, the third trimester of pregnancy. Every woman should be carried. We well that's the device that we created. It was invented. We just made a digital version. We decided to put a micro so the mom could hear the baby's heart. So it was some done, a whim by myself. Actually, I told the engineer, let's if it's as easy, let's keep the heartbeat there. And it turns out that that was the main driver for people to use the device. When the promotora came to their house, they were very happy because they could hear the baby's heart. So that's it was great, a great experience. But again, it gave me the humbling feeling that, oh gee, okay, I'm the power of the forces, so to speak, that I was dealing with. They were, I realized they were way beyond what I originally envisioned. Right? I thought that it's going to be just a normal thing. No. So your responsibility as a developer actually needs to be taken into consideration, because by the same token you're going to impact in a more dramatic way many people.
Yes, Enrique, you're bringing up another good point. And it's also been my experience. I've been doing clinical research in Latin America for about 10 years now. And I see physicians getting really, really motivated with these newer technologies that we bring to the country, because we bring science fiction like medical technologies that they've never seen and they never imagined that somebody was already developing in the US. So when we approach them with a protocol, with a sample of the device, they get really, really motivated and excited. And also it's a boost to their careers with their peers in the academic community. They feel more important, more accomplished, and they have the opportunity to write papers, to author the journal or whatever paper or publication that gets published after the study. So it's a great opportunity for investigators in Latin America to participate in clinical research.
Also, now if I can add this, there's a lot of potential partners that developers can have in the academic community. There are, for instance, Harvard Medical School and Johns Hopkins are very involved underdeveloped communities, healthcare of underdeveloped. We actually found out it was a great surprise, and I didn't think about it when we deployed Sense4Baby. Years after that, the School of Public Health, I might have been misquoting that, but a group in Harvard Medical School used Sense4Baby and tested their acceptance in Uganda. And it was, and the only thing that I, when I read that paper, that was years after, I just completely closed that dossier and put it away. When I read that paper, I thought, that's a learned lesson that I'm sharing at this moment with you. If we had at that moment, everybody has limited resources. Everybody. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if you're the richest man on the planet, you have limited resources. If you go with schools with great prestige that are eager to help you with this and are genuinely interested in deploying or testing your technology, why not do an early partnership and then expand your horizon? Your technology is going to be better accepted the more people that promote it and is going to going to save more lives. And by the way, I'm going to I know that we haven't gone to the next question, but one of the things that I am going to encourage everybody to remember is that we do this to save lives. One baby that you save is pays for the entire project. So that's the way it should be done. The products should be done to save people, and you need only one person whose life was saved justifies everything. So do that for that person.
Yes, well said, Enrique. I like it. Yeah, well said. Well, Enrique, we're close to the end of the show. I mean, time flies. I mean, it's been 45 minutes or so. All right, Enrique. Last question about practical matters. I mean, what's your opinion about corruption in Latin America, bribery? I usually hear horror stories about it, or people have this sense that there's so much corruption that it's so difficult to do business in Latin America. What's your take on that?
Corruption is everywhere. That's my first concept here. Second, countries are doing something. For instance, Mexico is now fighting corruption, and is making a dent against corruption. So I personally, of course, I'm Mexican, so I would encourage people to start in Mexico. But Mexico is really truly doing. Argentina too they are doing great job in controlling corruption. Second thing, what we have always done all the time when we go to a new country to do anything in Africa, wherever you want, is we get a partnership with a local trusted person that can tell you what is appropriate there and what is not. So that actually can help you a lot to navigate it.
Yes.
And like what your grandmother told you all the time, if you don't trust them, walk away.
Business. Yeah, yeah. Actually, the U.S. Commerce Department advises U.S. companies to really do a very comprehensive due diligence on every business partner that you're going to engage with in Latin America. And that applies a lot to distributors when you're trying to commercialize your products.
Yeah, usually an advisor that was recommended to you in a personal basis, an ex-classmate and
yeah,
brother, those guys help you a lot to navigate it.
Yeah, agree. All right, Enrique, we're very close to the end of the show. And one last question. What would you say to the CEO of a medical device company in the US or Europe that is looking at Latin America to do clinical research or to sell their technologies? What are your words of wisdom as a final last comment in the show?
I'm going to assume that their product is they are thinking about it and is not developed. I'm going to imagine that like this. They are going there.
Okay.
Right? So
I really meant products that are already developed in Europe or in the US. Hold on. If they're not developed, they are thinking about doing research somewhere else outside of the US, for example.
Well, if you have a prototype, even that is not necessarily a product, go there, talk with the people, see what they need. I personally start all my developments seeing what is the primary need in the company. More than what I see very often as a mistake. Very often you see a solution seeking for a problem. I actually find first the problem and I find the solution. So in other words, study your country and ask yourself, is this really going to help people there in wherever you're going to, in Colombia, in Brazil, or am I doing this just to expand my business? Why am I doing it? If the answer is yes, this honestly is going to save babies in Nigeria, you have whole support and blessing. If not, I would recommend you to think twice what you're doing. That's
good answer. Good answer. All right. Excellent, Enrique. It's been delightful to have you here on the show, and thank you so much for being our guest today. I'm sure listeners got a lot out of your wealth of knowledge about product development. And how can people find you? What's your email? What's your LinkedIn profile?
the easiest way to find me is I have a website, enriquesaldivar.com.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Cannot be easier, and also, if I'm going to make a little bit of advertisement here, is Cardio6. That's my current company, cardio6.com. You can find me there. So
okay.
So
you do consulting for companies that are looking to develop new products.
That's one of the things that I do to bootstrap my project.
Excellent, yes. Excellent. All right, Enrique, thank you so much, and we'll be in touch. Bye-bye.
Julio, thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you for the time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.